So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 6th day of exploring the chakras within a transformative paradigm with Dr. Sumitra Basu. Before we start the session, have a moment's silence. So a warm welcome, everyone. Unfortunately, this is the final session. Yesterday, Dr. Basu was looking at the psychic being and the interactions with the chakra system. Today, he will be looking at the higher chakras, the throat and head chakras. I'm sure it's going to be a very, very intriguing session. So over to you, Dr. Basu, and enjoy the session, everyone.
Thank you. Is this okay? This sound is clear?
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for being with us for this whole week. And trying to understand chakras from a very different perspective. And we are very fortunate that Aurobindo has given this subject a fresh look, because certain things, keeping the essence, but going towards the future, then you have to project something new. Always you have to project something new. But keeping the essence behind, keeping or what has been gained in the past behind, but not getting imprisoned in the past, but keeping that behind to go forward to the future. So that is what Aurobindo always does. For him, the most interesting thing is the unborn future. So we will share the screen. What is this that host disabled? Screen is not being shared, James, because it is said that the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
I'll just check.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Yes, okay. So we'll be discussing about these planes of consciousness which are associated with these higher chakras, the throat, the forehead, and the head, and then ultimately that you have to soar beyond the chakras, keeping the chakras, what you have gained from the chakras as the foundation, as the base, keeping that, then you have to soar high above, even higher. So then we come to the throat chakra, which is a very interesting chakra. And you know that this conventionally it has 16 purple petals, and there's a blue downward pointing triangle in the center with a circular white space symbolizing the Akash or ether, whatever you tell it. So it's conventionally known as the center of purification, associated with creativity and self-expression. So it can change negative experiences into wisdom. It can also bring in this trikal drishti. It can also facilitate the trikal drishti. And when blocked, it can lead to your what we call your decay, or what we call in terms of life and death. You can call that also death. But that is a symbolic thing. That here is symbolic. That your inner essence is no more expressed because your speech. Because we are surviving on speech, and when speech is not there, then we cannot communicate. So that is why perhaps this symbolically that decay and death that was described, that blocking this chakra brought into it. But before that, we have to understand this the whole thing of speech, which is a very interesting thing. Now, in Aurobindo, how he describes this? Aurobindo in Savitri describes this, that in the passage of the lotus of the throat, in the passage of the lotus of the throat, where speech must arise and the expressing mind and the heart's impulse run towards word and act. So you see, the speech will arise and the speech will reflect two things. It will reflect your thoughts and it will reflect your emotions also. So the speech that is coming out is to reflect two things simultaneously. It is going to reflect your thoughts and it is going to reflect your emotions. And a glad uplift and a new working came. Because when you work on this, as we see, as we go on, we'll see that when you work on this chakra and work on this plane of consciousness, then speech can be elevated to something which becomes which can become a mantra also, no? Which can become a mantra also. The speech can be elevated even at the end to a mantra. So there it always leads to new working. And so that life now obeyed to a diviner rule and every act became an act of God. So it is so important. The throat chakra is so important. Now with speech, I will tell you. Now these are you see, if you are conversant with how we are using our speech, how we are associated with the development of our speech, just imagine. If you see, now this is something to reflect upon. You see the thousands and thousands of natural objects, flowers, rivers, birds, mountains. They have been named in our ancient tradition in Sanskrit so beautifully. Such beautiful names they've given. And even the names of people, you see, the names in the Mahabharata, the names in the Ramayana, the names in the Vedas and Upanishads, the names of the rishis and all. How beautiful the names are. Today, when a child is born, then we go on seeking for where to get a good name to give that child. But how do you think that this happened? That at that time, thousands of years back, how these names were given? Such beautiful names. And today we are at a loss of giving names. You see, and I understood the real significance when one day in my clinic, one Muslim gentleman came and he was carrying a book in Bengali. It was written, the name of the book was Islam and Namkara, naming in Islam. So I said, what is this? What is this book? Then he told me, sir, that our religion Islam has come from the Arab countries. So all these Arabic names people use, Arabic words they use as names, but many of them are not suitable as names. They may be words which should not be used as names because they are very bad words or they might be abusive words. But our people in India, they do not know. So they just take up any Arabic word and they use it as a name so that people give correct names in Islam. So of children. So I have compiled this a list of correct names. Then I understood the significance of our own tradition, how beautifully these names were given. You see how these names were given, because one is that the rishis gave names in such a way that the name itself of that object and the vibration of that object will match with each other. You see, that object, every object has a vibration, and the name, when you pronounce it, that has also a vibration, and they have to that have to be aligned. And with that, thousands and thousands of names. You see, so many birds, flowers, and natural objects, such beautiful, beautiful names they have been able to give. Even people also, naming people, such beautiful names that they have been given. The names are in consonance with the character of the people. Today we give names which are not in consonance with the character of the person. But that time the names were given in consonance with the character also. And how was it possible? I think it was possible because at one time intuition was given a free play in civilization at one point of time. So that civilization develops, you see, of all the faculties that we have, the higher faculties, intuition must have been given a free play so that the rishis could do this work. And after a point in time, the intuition had to recede. Intuition had to recede so that rationality comes forward. Because at a certain point in time, reason has to come forward. Otherwise, we will be hooked to all irrational things, to superstitions, to dogmas. But at the beginning, you see, the intuition was thrown into the circus of mankind. The intuition was just thrown into the circus of mankind. And then the wishes picked them up and then they use them for those very beautiful names. So you see that speech is such an important thing, and that in all this thing that was being going on, this throat chakra was playing a very important role. Then much later, once a Russian shaman came to Pondicherry. He came to us and he came to our Nama office. Now he used to do sound therapy, and he used to produce sounds from his throat, and he didn't know the meaning of those sounds. But with those sounds, he was healing people. Very interesting is that he was healing people and he said that I am actually tuning myself with the consciousness of the person with whom I am sitting, a person who has come to him for healing, and I am vibrating with his system. So my sound that I am producing is vibrating with the system of that person. And then he told me that only when he came to India and he visited the very old, ancient, some of the temples here in Tamil Nadu, the great, very great temples like the Chidambaram temple and other temples, when he visited, then he heard the mantras that were being recited, and then he found that there was a similarity between the sounds he was producing and the mantras that he heard in these ancient temples, and which he never knew before. So he was coming and he demonstrated in front of us, actually with the sound that he was producing, how he was healing. We brought a subject who was having asthma, and we made him sit in front, and then he actually reduced that with his sound. He reduced that asthma, and then also he was telling us stories of his achievements, which included there were many cases where there were intractable pain in the neck, which could not be healed by doctors and all. And when he finally tuned into the vibration of that, he found that there were those who had been gully-toned during the French Revolution, or something had happened in past life, and something was being carried in the consciousness. Some consciousness was carrying a memory of those kind of things that have happened in past life. I don't know whether it is how much you can take it in face value, or how much it is true, or how much it is imagination. But that was what he was saying. But the main thing is that he was using his sound vibration. He's using his sound to vibrate or to tune in with the people who had come to him for healing. So this is such an interesting area. And in today's life, we see that in children, you see, whose both very infants, whose both parents are working parents, and the infant is left at the mercy of the caregivers, who are usually the ayahs or something like that, who are very busy with their mobile phones once the parents go off. So nobody talks with the infants, and the speech of the infants now develops late in such cases. So even when an infant has been born, and the infant cannot understand what we are saying, but we have to continuously talk with the infant. You see, we continuously talk with the infant. Why we talk? Unless we talk, a connection between that consciousness of the infant with the consciousness in the cosmic space where these words are kept, that connection is not made. You see, if you go on talking, with the infants, with the children, even if they don't understand us at 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, they will not understand what we are saying. But then, because we talk with them, their vocabulary develops. If you don't talk, their vocabulary doesn't develop. No, this is known in our science, and we have seen it. I have seen it that there were children who had accompanied their mothers when their mothers were jailed because there was petty thieves or for some reason or other, their mothers have been put in jail with small infants. And these infants, when they grew up, what happens that we take these children when they are grown up a bit to keep them in protection homes. No? The government has homes to keep children who don't have parents or whose parents are not being able to support them. And there we find that the children who are brought from jails, who have been at a jail from a very, very small, tender age, we cannot teach them anything. Nothing can be taught to them. Because in the jail, nobody talks except for dhanda, except for some motivation or something. No? Nobody talks like that for the sake of talking to the children. So it is only for some ulterior motive or some egoistic thing or what, then or what we call in Indian language dhanda. And only for that the children, people talk. So that's why people talk to children, so that we cannot train anything. These children cannot be taught anything, even if they are intelligent. So that is how the importance of speech, you can understand that. And then we find that in today's world, we still do not know fully why so much autism is happening. So much autistic children are being born. You see, there are many medical theories why this is happening. So there are theories of X, Y, Z, but nothing is very convincing and foolproof. We do not know. But we know one thing, that the infant listens to the whole body. And the listening of the infant, whose speech will develop afterwards, begins from the womb. Because as mother described, that when a child is in the womb, and if you play good music, or if you have something going on, some conversation going on which has got some value, then the fetus can pick up that. And afterwards, when the child is born, then the child can have musical aptitude. And even after the child is born, I always advise this, and I've seen that with very good results, that when children are born, I tell their mothers that you keep on playing classical music when they're going to sleep, and let the music go on even after they have slept, and they must listen to the full piece, not halfway. You should expose them to the full piece of music. And if you do that day after day, then you will see that their musical aptitude will develop. So speech is something which is so important. And then we don't know, we don't know how the Aborigines, the tribals, when the tsunami came, the tribals in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they could understand before our scientists knew that the tsunami would come, because then they moved to the higher regions. There were hills there, and they moved to the higher regions, and they were safe because how they listened. They were instinct, which is one lower form of intuition. And with that instinct, they could listen to things which are there, messages which are being given in nature by the birds, by the fishes, by the wind, by the trees, or all things in nature. They can give messages, and we can instinctively they know how to communicate with them. But afterwards, when civilization develops, rationality develops, and with reason comes doubt and all we lose all our natural faculties. But still, in infants, you can see that they are listening actually with their whole body. This is very, very, very interesting thing. Now, when we are grown up, of course, we have lost that instinct and that intuition, so we have to develop it. You see, when we are grown up, then we have lost at that. So that's why we have to work on the chakra, and that natural thing which was there, we have to now develop it ourselves by sadhana. Now, so work at this plane proceeds to build a base and foundation of silence, from where a meaningful speech can arise. If you are very interested, you can read that poem of Aurobindo. Silence is also the sages. And in silence, everything is being formed. And the word is something which is just being given, is being offered on the table. But the table is being made, is being prepared, and is being sustained by silence, where the words are only playing at the bottom of the silence. So you can read that. Silence is also the sages. So many a time, you see, we have to have a foundation of silence from where a meaningful speech can arise. Now, many a time we speak loosely. Many times, actually, if you see that in our lives, we have been forced into unnecessary troubles. We have drawn troubles into ourselves by speaking out loosely. In fact, afterwards, if you retrospect, and if we had kept silent at that time, might be that what you call that unfortunate situation could have been avoided. So you see, it might not be with our intention, because we speak something very loosely. We always speak very loose things. Even when one comes to the divine, you see, I will give an example of loose talk, a very important and spiritual example. Many people used to tell the mother when they were very old that I can't bear this life anymore. So please arrange so that I can have a transit to the next life. And mother arranged that. Mother arranged in many cases. In some of these cases, she arranged that these people who are wanting not to live any more, she made a peaceful and graceful transit. She arranged. Afterwards, she said that when she went to that realm where she saw these people who are there, their beings after they had passed away from the physical life, and she saw that what they had told was not true. It was their outer being had told that. Their psychic being or the inmost being, they didn't want that. That was not the true, what was called the true intention of the soul also. It was just the outer being which had told very loosely, very casually that I don't want to live. So casually we can say anything, and this is very important because nowadays we are advocating euthanasia, and one of the foremost psychiatrists of India who has passed away, Dr. Venkova Rao, he had come to Pondicherry for our program in Nama when we did a program on death, and that he had explained in details how many cases of reversible depression, they wanted euthanasia and they were given euthanasia. Whereas if the depression had been treated, they would have come out of that intention. So it is a very solid state of affairs. Of course, there are some people who really want euthanasia, but then there also are a great number of reversible depressive patients who can also want euthanasia. So just what I say might not be what is in consonance with the truth that is inside. So when you're working with this chakra, we are wanting to come out with the truth. We want our words should vibrate with the truth, and for that, you see, yeah, it is a silence that we have to in silence. Therefore, we have to practice that foundation. We have to build up that foundation from where this our words will arise. You see, there are two movements in silence, supported by silence. First is when a higher idea gets consolidated in you. If you really know how to practice silence, then the exact words needed for the correct expression of that higher thought, they will come out. So even if you're writing a poetry, or even if you're wanting to give a very beautiful speech somewhere and you want to express higher thoughts, or you just like for your own sake, for your own spiritual upliftment, you want to understand something and then you have the higher ideas, but these higher ideas, you cannot express them in words unless you have the foundation of silence. This is one very important thing, especially for people who are pursuing the spiritual path. And the second is a sudden impulsive emotion-laden thought can come out unchecked and unrestrained. And so if you know how to practice silence, then that will come out, that will be restrained. Somehow, you see, something we show in that verse that we said, that both the thought and the emotion, both are important. So both are modified. So you have to modify not only the cognitive thought that is coming, you have to modify the what you call the instinctive emotion, impulsive emotion that is coming. That impulse you have to control. And unless you control that impulse, then you can be in trouble. Actually, if you see that many of us, if you retrospect that many times we have come into situations which are very difficult, was only because we had not been able at one point in time to restrain our words. If we had restrained, then might be the result would have been different. If you retrospect, you will find that this is true. So to practice this, how we practice this? So we can initially begin by taking some time to introspect before we speak out, and by restraining any impulsive expression by stepping back. So I always say I always tell people in counseling, I always tell this, that suppose you are angry and that anger has got a valid reason. You have a valid reason to be angry and you are on the verge of shouting, blurting out something. But I tell them, just wait and step back in your mind, step back in your mind, and then come in front. You see, that moment, you see, when you, instead of reacting, you just stop momentarily, step back in your mind, and then come forward and then tell what you want to tell. By within that short period, the moment that you have stopped, the moment that you have stepped back, and the moment that you have come forward, 3 moments. No? The moment that you have suddenly stopped, and the another moment where you have stepped back, and the third moment when you have come in front. Within these 3 moments, you will see your reaction will be modified. Then what you tell actually can have a greater value. Whereas when you have blurted out, suddenly it will have a disruptive effect. You see, this is a very interesting experiment. You can do this and you can remember this, that whenever there is somewhere you have to react very positively, very strongly, by being very strong in your intention, in your speech, just pause, step back and come forward. Matter of 3 moments, and within that 3 moments, you will see consciousness will work in you. So, and when you practice this kind of thing, you can reach a state of spontaneity when the silence can automatically receive and transmit the exact words that have to be spoken. So, if you are always practicing this, if you are aware of this, then you can reach a state of spontaneity when the silence can automatically receive and transmit the exact words to be spoken. This is what mother was being told with this, that mother was very close to this um, these people, the Baha'is. Mother was very close to this Abdul Baha'i, and that he had told mother was he wanted that he was supposed to go to give a speech one day, and then he was not wanting to go because he was not well or something which I have forgotten. But he told mother to go and speak on his behalf, and mother said that I am not prepared. Then that was the first time when mother was told, you don't have to prepare. You be there, be in silence. The words that are that should be told will automatically come to you. So you give that. Mother has given a very beautiful description of that. The Baha'is actually respect mother and Sri Aurobindo very much because they know mother's interaction with Abdul Baha. So if you talk with the Baha'is who have this lotus temple in Delhi, you will find that a lot of respect they have for the mother, because more or less the educated people, they know that. And you know that they wanted to give the charge of their religion, of the religion of the system to the mother, but her work was elsewhere, so she didn't comply. So now another thing will happen when you work with this chakra. It is not only that you speak the right sounds, but the quality of the sounds emitted, they will change. They will carry a power, no? So that they can be effective, and they will also vibrate with pleasantness. You see, two things. The quality of the sound, you are working on this chakra, the quality of sound will change so that they will be effective, and at the same time they will be pleasant also. No wonder classical vocal music was developed by beings who had worked on their consciousness. Or, we all know that the verbal pronunciation of Om or a dynamic mantra, how galvanic it is, how dynamic it is. That it has a galvanic effect on the whole system. So you see the speech ordinarily which has been given to us by God, and we spoil it by endless chattering, how that can be actually developed to be a very potent force. So this is something you should always remember. Speech is a very interesting thing, and this it is a power that has been given to us, and that power, instead of that useless babble that we are constantly doing, if we know that how to put it in the right context, then we will be doing serving a great thing. Then we come to this forehead chakra, and which is also called the third eye of intuition. But what is more important is what Sri Aurobindo has described. Very beautiful. You see Sri Aurobindo's description of this forehead chakra. In the castle of the lotus streaks the brows, whence he shoots the arrows of his sight and will. In the castle of the lotus, so he is putting the lotus of the forehead chakra, he is placing it in a castle. He is giving it a royal, so what we call a royal attribute, an attribute of imperial attribute, imperialism, of royalty. No? He is giving it a royalty. So it is something which is royal. So something which is regal, something which has a splendor of its own. It has to be seen in that context. The context that actually it gives you that dignity, that royalty comes. I'm not talking about royalty in that sense when you talk about, no, people will say that you people are what you call talking about kings and all in an era of democracy. Not because of that. Royalty, not in that sense. Royalty in the sense of high dignity. You see, royalty in the sense of high dignity. That in mother used to say, mother once said that when some souls can decide to be born in a royal family, because in a royal family you have to have a strict discipline. You cannot do whatever you like. Even when you sit for your lunch, then you have to properly organize the whole thing. You cannot just grab some food and put it into your mouth like that. You have to have a distance. You have to have an aristocracy. You have to have a discipline. Even if something happens, no, you just cannot run out of the house. You have to have that dignity. Or suppose when a sheep sings, the captain of the sheep, no, he doesn't run away with others. He has to sit with the sheep and sing. That's the royalty. And Paul Risha, who had married the mother once and then he went away, he also admitted that Aurobindo, after he came to Pondicherry, he was invited many times to come and to join politics. He refused it, and that refusal is an index of royalty. So royalty in terms of dignity, royalty in terms of consciousness, not in terms of all what we say in this proletariat and democracy, not in that terms, but in the terms of dignity. That is a royalty. So that was Aurobindo is representing, that this lotus of the forehead is something which has got a royalty. Why? Because because he shoots the arrows of his sight and will. We will come to that. What does he mean when he says that? That he really shoots the arrows of his sight and will. Now the symbol of the castle as the ground of the forehead lotus signifies the royalty of willpower. Why it is royal? Because without will, knowledge is ineffective. Without will, knowledge is ineffective. Knowledge is important. So concentration at the center aligns the individual will with the universal will. Actually, what it is aligning? Remember on the first day, and afterwards also, we have talked about Chit Shakti, consciousness force. So Sat Chit Ananda, that is the supreme reality. Aurobindo modified Chit to be Chit Shakti, consciousness force, because consciousness is important if there is no energy, if it doesn't have any energy, and that energy may be dormant or that energy may be dynamic, effective. Now, when this Chit Shakti comes down, at the level of the human being, it translates into two different things, knowledge and will. Now, why this chakra? Because automatically they are not synthesized with each other. That you have to understand. This is our dilemma of the human being. You see, that is why this forehead chakra is so important. What is the dilemma? You see, in the supreme consciousness, Chit and Shakti, they are together, Chit Shakti. As I told you that it is the Chit Shakti which builds the universes. It is the Chit Shakti which is building the evolutionary and the non-evolutionary worlds. And it is the embodiment of the Chit Shakti which we consider as the divine mother or the world mother. Now, high up, they are together. They are there together. And down below into the electron, you see, unconsciously, they are there together. The electrons know that they have to go on rotating. You see, that rotation is a force, is an energy. Otherwise, they will not rotate. And that knowledge that they have to rotate, that is an incipient knowledge that they have to go on rotating. What if the electrons today go on strike? If they say that we are not going to rotate any further, what will happen? Our whole material world will collapse. It is not collapsing because they know that knowledge and will are there, not consciously, but even unconsciously, instinctively, materially, they are there synonymous with each other. How beautiful. Otherwise, the whole creation wouldn't stand from the material level. And how beautiful, because of the spiritual level also, creation would not have happened at all. because if force was not there, consciousness would be lying idle. Now, in the human consciousness, they have become separated. Will has been separated from knowledge. This is our great dilemma. If you ask me what is the greatest human dilemma, I will say that we have knowledge, we have willpower, but we cannot synthesize them. So I can have enormous knowledge. I have enormous knowledge what to do as the chief of the police in the city of Pondicherry to see there is no drug addiction here. But do I have the willpower to stop it? I might not have. I might not have the willpower to stop it. Or I might be a person with great dynamism, great willpower, wanting to do many things. But I don't have the backing of knowledge. I have energy, but if I don't have knowledge, that energy is going to be wasted. So this is this is our great dilemma, and one of the greatest causes of misfortune in today's world, both in individual and in collective life. Both in individual and in collective life, equally important is the dichotomy between knowledge and force. So to come to that, to be to synthesize them, these higher two chakras, the forehead chakra and then the crown chakra, one after another, that has to be worked. Unless that is worked, you cannot have a perfect life on earth. You cannot dream to have a perfect life on earth, because if will and knowledge are not synthesized, you cannot do that. And that has been the task that has been given to us. They have become separated. So this is the play of the divine. This is the game of the divine, that they have given us this task. And as we go on bringing them together, as we go on bringing them together, climbing up in consciousnness, we can do something which is productive for us. And if I am in charge of the collectivity, I can do something which will be beneficial for the collectivity. So this is that's why that it is something which is royal, because without it has to substantiate knowledge. Otherwise, knowledge is important. So concentration at this center. Now again, this is also very interesting. Now always you will find that in our traditional system, people who are practicing yoga, they are told concentrate on the forehead chakra to develop your willpower. So what you do, you concentrate there. If you concentrate there, your willpower will develop. But from our integral perspective, that is only a small thing. That is a very small thing. I will tell that we don't want to concentrate just to develop our individual willpower, and that will be the end of everything. We don't want to do that. We want to align our individual will with the universal will. We want to align our individual will with the universal will. For us, that is more important. So our universal will has to come and has to make our individual will is instrument. For us, it is different. For us the trajectory is different. So we have to open there. You see, so when some of you who are concentrating between the eyebrows, so when you are concentrating in the eyebrows, don't strain yourself as people do. As many people who are outside our tradition, that they strain a lot while they are concentrating there, thinking about this bindu, thinking about this thing, and they strain themselves a lot for hours and hours to develop their individual will. I will say that for us, it will be much easier that you don't strain there. You go to that space between the eyebrows, expand that space, or in that space, bring the consciousness of the mother in Aurobindo, or invoke them and pray that willpower, that individual will, has to be surrendered to the universal will. So instead of concentrating there, expand there. Instead of having that experience of concentrating there, which is also important at the beginning, but after when you have done a little bit of consolidation of your concentration there between the eyebrows, then expand, go along with the movement of expansion there. Try to expand there. That space between the eyebrows, try to expand there. And if possible, try to bring in the consciousness of the mother in Aurobindo in any way that you like, either their symbols or their figures or their what you call something that is reflecting them. That's it might be just a pure feeling, a pure aspiration for the mother in Aurobindo, for the mother, especially, and for the mother alone. If you do that, automatically brings in Aurobindo, and with that space, you just widen it, and with the aspiration that the universal will has to act through your individual will. The universal will has to act through your individual will. So this is very important. And the symbol of the shooting arrows, Shivaji said that the arrows, the shooting, sight and will, shows that the new alignment of willpower can reach beyond the mind to bring forth intuitive visions beyond our sensory perception from the poise of a third eye. So when he says that the arrows are shooting from there, that means you are shooting up to higher supracognitive planes so that the intuitive plane opens and you are no longer bound with your sensory perception or with your reason. You are just bringing in that intuition into your system. So that's why this royalty, and that's why this very beautiful chakra, very beautiful chakra. And then if one can align the individual will with the universal will, one can perform great deeds, unlock hidden occult secrets, and can have insights in intuitive disciplines like astrology. Astrology, you see, it is an intuitive discipline. What happens with intuitive discipline is when intuition comes at the level of the mind, it gets diluted. So if some astrological predictions appear to be very brilliant, the other half will appear to be extremely wrong. You see, astrological predictions can be right, very much right, and it can be very, very much wrong, because when they come at the level of the mind, they get diluted. So and we don't know how to tap the occult secret in the proper way. So, and if performed, but for us, it's more important that we do it for our own transformation. We do it for our own development. We do it to be better instruments of the Mother Aurobindo, not to be a good astrologer. That is not our goal, to be a good astrologer. Our goal is to be the intermediate being in the future. You see, between us and the supramental being, there will be born the intermediate beings, apprentice Superman. So we want to develop in our next lives as intermediate beings. So for that, it is for that we have to develop and work on these centers. And you see, if performed in the intense mystic discipline, this when you link your individual will with the universal will, that is how one could have achieved this phenomenon of Ichcha Mrityu or will death, which is there in the Indian tradition. So a strong mental formation needs two prerequisites. Firstly, one has to cultivate calm, detachment, and equipoise. So that is one is poise in the inner being. A strong mental formation can be made in the inner being when it can be constructed free from doubts and prejudices. You see, you want to make a strong formation that will have a strong willpower, but you can't make it in the outer mind. You have to go to the inner being, to the inner mind to make it. And then, you see, when you have made a strong imaginative formation, then you concentrate between the eyebrows. So power is not only consolidated around the sense mind, but gets linked with the universal will. You see, because it has two petals and two signifies decision, creative decision. So that is why you see, if you want to cultivate this chakra, first you have to go behind to your inner being, to your inner mind. And inner mind make a strong formation that I want to develop this willpower and I want to surrender it to the divine. And then you concentrate there on the eyebrows and expand there in that space so that you invite the higher power to come down there. So Swami Vivekananda has given a very beautiful exercise, that a strong imagination based on an inspiration from within, as he explains, that a very strong imagination, you have made a strong imagination. And this imagination, it is enriched with imagination that comes from within. So it will become a light. You see, it can illumine, it can actually illumine you. So you have make a very strong imagination and you infuse that imagination with higher inspiration. So you infuse that imagination, ordinary imagination, you imagine in the ordinary way, but that you become extraordinary when you infuse that imagination with a high inspiration, and then it can become like a light. So now he gives them exercise. So it is easier to imagine that the universe is a mirror. You see, this is easier to imagine that the universe has become a mirror and you are visualizing your body in that mirror. But Swami Vivekananda gives a different exercise, reversing the step. He says that you make a formation, imaginative formation, that the individual is the mirror, that you yourself are the mirror. Every one of us, we can meditate on this, that I consider myself to be a mirror, and in this mirror, the universe is reflected in me. So instead of which is easier, that the universe is the mirror and my body is reflected there, as an individual, I have a mirror. I have an individual mirror in which the whole universe is reflected. That is possible because the universe, individual, and the transcendent are the same thing in different poses. So that is perfectly possible. Now, what happens when you have become a mirror and the whole universe is reflected in you, and then you have made a very strong formation that to identify your will with the universal will, then you will find easier to do this. You see, you will find easier to synthesize or what you call identify your individual will with the universal will. So that's why I give this exercise there. That sometimes in meditation, might be once in 6 months, you can sit down with this very beautiful exercise that you consider yourself to be a mirror, and in that mirror, let the whole universe be reflected. So you are identified completely with the universe. And when you are identified completely with the universe, then you make the movement of surrendering your individual will to the universal will, then actually it is going to be very effective. It is going to be very powerful. So it is a very nice exercise. The slides are there. You can look at it at other times and you can see how you can practice this. The Sahasradala, these are the outer things, that these 1,000 petals with this golden middle with the circular moon region inscribed with the luminous triangle. But for us, what is important, in the conventional sense, it is known that it is a bridge to the cosmos. It is a bridge to the cosmos. Now, Sri Aurobindo describes words are in the country of the lotus of the head, which thinking mind has made its busy space. The thinking mind has made it a space. And why? Not in a simple, but in busy space. Why busy? Is it busy to think about all sorts of materialistic things? How much money I will earn, what success I will have in my profession and all that. Not for that. Not for that. Not for those things. But it is busy to work out other levels of thought. You see, we are thinking from our level of a mind. We are thinking from the level of the mind. Now, why Sri Aurobindo says this? The thinking mind, you see, usually it is strange because usually in the conventional sense, people will say when you have reached the Sahasradala, the 1,000-petal lotus, you are above thinking. You have gone above all thinking. You have gone into the absolute where thinking is no more necessary. That was always the conventional way of seeing things. That we have reached the Sahasradala, the thinking has no place. Whereas Sri Aurobindo says the opposite thing. Thinking has not only made a place, it is busy there. So why he says that? Why he says that? Very interesting. No? It is completely opposite to the conventional sense, which you just not believe that this can be, well, this is the thing. They would just say that we go there to the silence, to the cosmos. It is a bridge to the supreme. And why? I should be concerned with thought. I should be away from thought. I should be detached from all thinking. Now, that is one way. That is one way to go to the supreme. So you leave everything and you go to the supreme. That is one way. That also Sri Aurobindo acknowledges. It is not that he doesn't acknowledge. He acknowledges. That is a good thing that you can do. You leave everything and you go to the supreme, to the void. One way. But Sri Aurobindo, for the first time, he constructs another road also. He constructs another road. And what is that road? The thinking mind itself will evolve. The cognitive consciousness, cognition is thought. So the cognitive consciousness will itself evolve. And while evolving, it will produce higher and higher levels of mind, which have not manifested in civilization. Still, in civilization, human civilization has manifested what we know as our present mind. But there are higher and higher levels of mind that have not been manifested, but people knew it by inklings. People knew them by inklings. It is not that they were not known. They were known by certain inklings, they were known. In certain glimpses, they were known. But they can be developed in a full-fledged way. That Sri Aurobindo has given. You see, it is not that these things were not known. They were known as, they came as just glimpses on the way. Just some, what you call, something was peeping. Something was just coming and going away. Something was just fleeting ideas. Just like a fleeting thing, they used to come and go. But Sri Aurobindo has organized them. So they are the planes of, you see, our mind is a plane of Chit Shakti, where knowledge and will are not harmonized. But these are higher planes of Chit Shakti. It is Chit Shakti which is organizing this place, these higher minds. So there are levels of mind beyond my mind. So beyond my mind, there is a level of the Ha mind. Beyond that, there is the illumine mind. Still beyond that is called the very organized intuition. And beyond that is the field of global cognition, which Aurobindo calls the overmind. And even beyond that, then there is something very still higher. That is the supermind or the creative, supreme creative consciousness, which is a different ball game altogether, which is beyond all the rest of the paradigm. So that it is completely beyond everything. So you see that whole range will open. So for Aurobindo, when you go to this space, it is not the end of everything. For the usual practitioners of the Indian tradition, when they reach the crown chakra, it was the crowning experience of everything. And so then one was very satisfied. Then one had reached the highest pinnacle of spiritual experience, and then one was free to do whatever one liked. For Aurobindo, it is just the beginning. It's just the beginning because a new type of experiences will unravel one after another. That's why instead of the thinking mind becomes silent, instead of passing into the cosmos, instead of getting liberated into the void, which is so beautiful to hear and to what you call even to know, still, but she talks about something which is totally different, where actually everything is busy to build up something new. So this is how we have to, you see, we have to vision Aurobindo's chakra system, where everywhere, everyone ends at the point when he actually begins a new journey. Aurobindo begins a new journey where everything is coming to, for others, it is coming to a point where he was not satisfied with that. So this, it symbolizes a consolidation of spiritual progress where consciousness and force are aligned with the wisdom and energy of the are aligned to link up with the wisdom and energy of the universe. They are no longer confined to one's limited cognitive space. It opens up to the cosmic space which is infinite and teeming with ideas that are simultaneously invested with force. He is not interested to go into a plane where there will be no ideas at all. So there will be no ideas at all. You don't have to think anything at all. You are just swimming in absolute blankness. No. For sure, it is not that. He is wanting to go where? To a space which is teeming with creative ideas, with great ideas, with ideas that can transform the world, the ideas that can build new worlds. So it is just the opposite of the usual common parlance. Now the concentration between the brows leads to the concentration or consolidation of the mind of will. You see, in the forehead chakra, when you are concentrating on the forehead chakra, what you are doing? You are concentrating willpower. But concentration above the head, it leads to a space which is primarily a domain of knowledge, secondarily a domain of will. You see, when you are concentrating in between the forehead, you are concentrating primarily on a place which is the domain of the willpower. And when you are concentrating above your head, you are primarily concentrating on knowledge, where will becomes secondary and knowledge is primary. And here will is primary. Will is primary, here knowledge is primary. So as the consciousness, this is important because the disharmony in the world, as we are discussing, is primarily because of the dissonance between knowledge and will. Now, this knowledge and will, they will start coming together. You see, not that they will come together there. They will start come together. When you work on the forehead and then you work on the crown chakra, then the will and the knowledge will start coming together. And as the consciousness arises and goes into the supramental consciousness, then only they will be aligned perfectly. So the alignment is perfect only at the level of the supramental consciousness, where knowledge and will become synthesized spontaneously, so that knowledge is automatically effective. Knowledge automatically carries its effectual power, and will is automatically luminous. You go to the supermind when the will that is there in the supermind is automatically carries the luminosity of knowledge, and knowledge automatically carries the effectiveness of willpower. So you have to go very high. So it is not some easy thing. It is when transformation will take place, then only when we go to the high supermind, then only this crowning realization will happen. Before that, the knowledge and will start coming together when we reach the crown chakra. So you see that in Aurobindo's saga of transformation, when everybody ends, he starts. When everybody ends, he starts from that level. And it's the force of transformation coming, and he's opening up the chakras. And then also that ascension comes. You see, in the older yogas, it was ascending up. In Aurobindo's system, power is descending, and the descent is releasing the ascending power. And that ascending power that is coming up will come up in such a way that when it comes at the level of the forehead, you will have the, with the grace of the, of course, with the grace of the descending power, you can align your will with the individual will with the universal will. And when you go above the head, then you are ready for the journey into the, what you call, the annals of the new types of cognitive consciousness. So one can start by widening the consciousness above the head, invoking the silence and vastness of the infinite, so that it becomes not only endless, but holds all contradictory and complementary ideas without confusion or conflict. So first you have to go and expand in such a way that you are not limited by contradictions and complementary ideas and contradictory ideas. They do not limit your vision. So you are beyond them. So once this is consolidated, one can receive a pure idea that comes as an inspiration and may not need words for formulation. All the time, pure ideas, they do not need words. They can come just as an inspiration. So this is an exercise we have practiced earlier, that when you have, where you can just concentrate on this, that first you make your mind silent. First, you make your mind absolutely silent. First, make your mind absolutely silent. If you can't make your mind silent, then take the, you may help, because if you are thinking too much, if you are too much in the habit of intellectual activity, then it is difficult to make your mind silent. So if you want, then you have to take the help of an imagery. I always use that imagery of a house that is locked and thoughts that are like visitors are coming from all sides. They are unable to enter this house of the mind because it is locked, and they are encircling it and going away. And the mind has become silent and empty because nothing can come inside. And when the mind has become silent and empty, when the mind has become silent and empty, at the next stage, you raise up your the level of your cognitive consciousness, the level where thinking occurs. Now you raise it up above your head. You raise it up above your head by a little bit, might be a few centimeters, might be more than a few centimeters, and then spread it wide, God spreading it. And then from very high above, invoke the light to come and uh, fall on that surface of that expanded mind. That mind has been expanded. So you just raise up, no? After being silent, you raise up your mind and let that mind go above your head, and you expand it infinitely, expand it like a huge sheet of glass or a huge sheet of water, expand it. And when you have expanded it to the extreme, then from very high above, just invoke the light to come. And or imagine that the light is coming down, and this light is intuitive ideas that is coming down and that is falling on that great surface, and from that surface it is percolating down into your whole system. So it is something like that. So you see, that inspiration, that you can always open up to the higher inspiration. You can always open up to the higher consciousness. So these are things that you can do. I will tell you that a very interesting exercise. You can do this today. So when you are reading something, might be it is very useful if you read one of Sri Aurobindo's things of Savitri. And usually we read it from here. Try to read actually 3-4 lines from above your head. Then you will get an inkling of how to do this kind of work. You see, you can do it. You open a page and not seeing it from the mind, but raise your mind a little bit high and try to see from that. You will not be able to see at first more than 2, 3, 4 lines, but a little bit you do that. Concentrate on 2, 3 lines from above your head, not from your head. You open the book and try to concentrate from above your head and see 2, 3 lines. You can see from there, or you can actually read it. Even if you don't understand, try to read those lines from above the head, not from the level of head. Do this. Sometimes if you do this, gradually you will see that your capacity will increase. Then you know that that you can also think beyond our thinking mind. Then our vistas will open. And then what is there? This is Sri Aurobindo ends that passage where he talks about the chakras by this time. Behind all reigned her sovereign deathless soul. Behind all means behind all the chakras. The chakras are not stand-alone phenomena in the world. He's not considering them. Of course, the Chit Shakti has built them, but they are not stand-alone phenomena. Behind them, there is the deathless soul. That is the sovereign deathless soul. So the chakras are situated in the inner being. Behind the inner being is the soul space, or the inmost being, the space of the inmost being. The psychic being as a projection of the unborn soul in evolution needs to come forward when the chakras are activated. Until, however, of course, the ego has to be worked upon and transcended. Otherwise, it would be risky to do that work. Unless we have worked on the ego, it is risky. Unless the ego has been worked upon and transcended, the activation of the centers of dynamism will be risky, and the psychic being would find it difficult to manifest. We'll come, Manan, we'll just finish the next slide, which is the last slide. And the consummation is what the awakening of the Kundalini in traditional Tantra become extremely arduous and risky with the gradual non-availability of external guides. You see, the awakening of Kundalini in the traditional system become extremely risky with the gradual non-availability of good guides. So awakening of the psychic being in the integral paradigm is significant because the psychic being itself can act as the inner guide. So you don't have to need an external guide. You don't have to fall upon an external guide because you don't know. He might not be an effective one. And you go to the psychic being, and that itself will facilitate the descent of the force of transformation. As a result, the unleashed ascending forces of consciousnesses activated by the chakras can rise above and widen out into the cosmic consciousness and the universal self. So as a result, the unleashed ascending forces of consciousness, because of the descending force coming down, some ascending forces will be released, and they will start working. And the consciousness can rise further up, and using the chakra above the head as a base, it can consolidate itself into a spiritual person. You see, using the chakra above the head as a foundation, not the end of everything, but the foundation, the beginning of something. The crown chakra is not the end of the endeavor, but the beginning of a new endeavor. Where it can be considered, if you work on that, you can consolidate yourself as a spiritual person who can finally merge into, when it will happen, into the supramental being. Now, before ending, I will say I have just sent you. So we have ended the PowerPoint presentation, and before going, I will say you that I have just sent you in this WhatsApp a presentation I had sent to Manan, I think 2 days back, about the subtle body in Sri Aurobindo system, a talk that I had recently given, and in that that is an explanation how the future body, the organs will be transformed. Even the organs will be transformed, and the organs will have two types of transformation. There will be a transformation of the function, and there will be a transformation of the structure. We talked about that when we talked about the physical consciousness. So there will be a transformation of the structure and the transformation of the functions. As Sri Aurobindo said, that they will be more of, actually they will be centers of energy. The organisms will be dynamisms or plastic transmitters of energy. They will be centers or transmitters of energy. So that's why you see chakras are actually energy centers. What are chakras? Chakras are energy centers that have been projected from the non-evolutionary worlds, and they have met with the evolutionary force that is acting, and then together they have consolidated into an energy field. And when Sri Aurobindo says that our organs will be replaced by these energy centers, there will be forms of dynamisms or energies. Then Mother was asked, that means something like chakras will come and replace the organs. And Mother said, yes, because the chakras are the finer energy, what you call dynamisms there, and they can come and actually they can, instead of the gross working of the chakra, the subtle working of the energies which are there in the chakras can be reflected in the organs. Of course, it can happen. And Mother said that, oh, it will take time, of course. As Sri Aurobindo said, that it will take a minimum of 300 years. If you go on, if you start working and go on, it will take nearly 300 years to achieve that. So this is something very interesting. Mother enters into the inner worlds, into the inner material worlds, not only into the inner worlds. A time comes when this inner world fuses with the outer world. What does that mean? That means that the inner world will become actually something which will be which can be felt in the outer world. So a different kind of matter will be produced. It's very difficult to understand this. If the inner being merges with the outer being, if the inner being merges with the outer being, then what is there in the inner being will no longer be inner. It will produce a second type of matter. The first type of matter which is there in the outer being. A second type of matter can be produced, so that the inner being will become material. Na? You just imagine that the inner being is fused with the outer being, and the inner being itself has become material. So what a wondrous thing that can happen. We will be entering a new domain of matter, a second domain of matter with which we are not conversant now. It's not just the subtle physical, something more than that. The subtle physical will come forward to become the new type of gross. No? We say that this word is nowadays used, new normal. So the new normal will be the subtle coming into the gross world. That will be the new normal. So that will be the new matter that will be coming on. So we'll just read for a few seconds for your glass of water, and we come back and we start with Manan and the chakras. And the chakras are the connection between the inner being and the outer being. But the chakras are at the foundation in the inner being. The chakras have their foundation in the inner being, and they're projected into the outer being. So there is a bridge, but the bridge has its foundation on one side, not on both sides. So if you consider it as a bridge, the bridge has its foundation on one side. You say a bridge will have foundation on both the banks of the river, but you have here it has founded on one bank. On the other side, it is just projecting, just hanging there, just touching it. It's just like that you have to conceive. So we'll just stop the recording for a few seconds so that you can have a glass of water, and we can come back and we can resume our conversation with Manan and then with Ketki. Yes, James, is okay?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Dr. Basu.
Yes, you can start. Yes.
Yeah. No, my apologies. I could not join earlier. I just joined. So I missed your earlier session, but I look forward to the Q&A. And of course, they'll send me the recording, so I'll catch up there.
So, Manan, will you first say what you wanted to say?
Yeah, namaste, Dada. Thank you for the session. I was making notes and I have a couple of observations and questions which I'd like to read out. So, if I've gotten it right, and on the first day you had laid a lot of emphasis on, even though you're starting from bottom up in terms of the chakras, that is not necessarily the order that we have to keep in mind or retain, right? And from the outset, we have to aspire to find the psychic being, and for that, surrender to the mother, so that increasingly we are able to align our will with the will of the mother. And through the descent of Chit Shakti, then the work on the chakras or centers of consciousness will happen with mother's grace, right?
Yes, yes.
And then when you were talking about the top 3 chakras, the aspiration should be for manifesting divine knowledge, divine will, and divine expression. More and more in alignment under the psychic being, bridging the inner being and the outer being under the guidance of the psychic being, right? Okay. So Dada, then obviously, like you were emphasizing, this avoids all the pitfalls of the traditional Kundalini yoga. So then this becomes a safe attempt, because a lot of people try to dabble into Kundalini yoga, but then we often see a lot of fear and then a lot of cases going wrong also, right? Because people are practicing it some weird ways. So I think that is what...
Frequently I see people who are working with chakras and all, and then they fall into trouble and they have some psychiatric problems or other. Frequently I see.
Right. No, I have some cases in my family also, actually. So it runs pretty close. Right. So, okay. So now the other thing is, you mentioned a bit about subtle body, and I'm very interested in again, I had put it briefly yesterday also, after the supramental descent in 1956, and now with the presence of Sri Aurobindo and the mother in the subtle physical, by aligning more and more to their presence, which we all experience sometimes in different ways, how will that aid in conscious living, so that we are more and more focused on accelerated conscious evolution, so that at least we can be divine instruments for expression of divine will in the world? So, I mean, the subtle physical presence of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, that's kind of the question. If you could talk a bit about that.
So I see that we have 2 tasks to perform. One is to going on developing the what you call beautiful moments, live beautiful moments which can lodge in the psychic being. You see that a psychic being can only keep the memories of which are the most beautiful moments, which have got some spiritual touch. So at least we should aspire that we should have more and more of these moments, and because they will be there in the psychic being, which will be there in the memory temple. We want to offer ourselves to the mother so that she has raw material for her work for the new creation. So to prepare for that, one is that psychic memories have to be increased, and second thing is you have to work on your body consciousness and work on your subtle body. So if you work on our subtle body, then even when the outer body is not there, in the subtle world, these cells, this work that has been done in your cells in a subtle way, that they will remain in the cosmic consciousness. So that is, I would see it in this way, because this is the way we are preparing for ourselves to be the intermediate beings of the future. And then at the level of mind also. I will just come to you. Before that, I will secret had asked this, written this. I just want to clarify certain things which are also related to what Manan was saying. What kind of thing? As he is saying that inner being, the experience of inner being is stop thinking. Means stop thinking with all the advantages that brings to the evolution of consciousness. Now, the inner being has also got many areas. So stop thinking means thinking of the external mind. But the inner being has got an inner mind, which has a different kind of thinking, which actually you cannot stop that. You have to allow that to happen. And that inner mind goes to these higher ranges. Now we are talking about these supracognitive matrices, or the evolution of the cognitive consciousness. To evolve into higher levels of mind, you can only go through the inner mind. So you can only develop if you develop your inner mind, then only you open up this, what you call the supra-rational faculties of acquiring knowledge. This is the first contribution of Indian psychology to the West. If anybody asks me what is the primal contribution of Indian psychology to the West, I would say knowledge can be gained not only by sensory perception and vision, but by suprarational means, like intuition, like inspiration, like knowledge by identity, knowledge by revelation. Knowledge was revealed to Moses, to Prophet Muhammad, to the great gurus, to the rishis as mantras. So all that, and that opens up. So you are actually stopping the thought of the ordinary mind, but you are encouraging the higher order thinking. That has to be sure. And then what you're saying is only one part. That day I explained to you, but I will give you literature, then you will understand. There is an inner mind, there is an inner vital, then there is an inner physical. Now that inner vital holds our energy. You see that outside also the mind and the physical is linked by the vital. The vital is containing our life energy, and that life energy in the outer being is limited, with which we cannot do much. A little bit of work we can do, but we'll get frustrated, fatigued, our energy goes out, we get diseased, we get ill. Inside the inner vital, not the whole inner being, but the inner vital, there is a concentrated energy which is in connection with the cosmic energy, and that is the pranic shakti. That pranic shakti, if you know to tap, that will have a healing power, not the energies at every level. Above the pranic shakti is going to the higher level energies, whose work is different, to bring up cognitive, open up new what you call centers of knowledge and all that. That is not for healing. Healing is a very specific act, and the healing comes from the pranic shakti, which is there at the level of the inner vital, when it is connected with the cosmic consciousness. So there, I think if you get my book on integral health, there we have dealt with this a little bit. Idea it will come. You can ask James for this copy of integral health. So there we have dealt with this, that how this pranic shakti can be linked up with the cosmic consciousness from where healing energy comes. But the pranic shakti also merges higher with higher levels of energy. Now the higher levels of energy are doing higher things. Healing is only one part of the whole game. So there are other things the energy has to do, build up different worlds. So that has to be done. So you see, everything has a meaning. Chakras is, you see, chakras. It is just an interest to know how things are working. You see, even what I told, even if you are not aware of the chakras in Aurobindo system, the chakras will automatically be activated and the work will be done. Of course, if you are very devotional and you are only concerned with being devoted with the mother and Aurobindo, that is one thing. You need not know all these things. But if you are interested to know the whole process, otherwise Aurobindo would have stopped their devotion and built only a temple with mother's image, and he would not have gone into writing pages and pages of life divine and synthesis so that things can be explained. Because at one point the human mind wants to know the explanation, wants to know what is going on behind the whole process, no? Isn't it? Ketki, you would want to know what is actually going on. Otherwise, why would have written pages after pages? You would have only said that we sit down and we just invoke the mother, and that the game would have been finished. But not only Aurobindo is writing, same point is coming from. Why Aurobindo's writing is difficult to read? Because it is circular writing. He comes to a point, and then from another angle he comes to the point again from another direction. You see, the same point, he comes from very different directions to build up the same thing. So that is why that is also needed. So of course, in patience, of course, at every level there is a disharmony. What you say, this whole structure of the being that I told you is we use it in health. Of course, if you take that book of integral health from James, and then that I think it is written in a very simple way for to understand, because it is the disharmonies between the different planes of consciousness that cause different kinds of diseases at different planes. And when you move inside, then you know what are the inner tasks that have to be done to supplement the healing at the outer level. What is the inner task that is to be done? So if you know the whole structure, of course, it is very useful, but then the whole structure has to be known. And if you have an idea where all the planes of consciousness that are working, which are represented with the chakras and all, then it is easier for you to develop or deal with problems. With the same problem in different people might need different interventions. For example, if someone is depressed and someone who is very spiritual, then you need just to work on this psychic being or the psychic center, and then many things can actually happen. But with someone who is very rustic, then you have to work at the physical level. Then it is not, you cannot work on that very subtle psychic level. And someone who is an artist, you can work at the level of the inner mind or the creative mind. So that will help. So if an artist patient comes to me who is depressed, I want to see how his inner being is active, how his inner mind is using his artwork. And I will, if I have to give him medicines, I will give him medicine in such a way that his artistic work will not be hampered. So I will always give medicine in such a way that the artistic work will not be hampered. Now, at the beginning, I used to have conflicts with my colleagues who used to say, patient is a patient and everybody has the same symptom. And you have to have the same, the same medicine for everyone. But I don't subscribe to that. I believe that everybody has is poised in a different plane of consciousness. And if you know the intrinsic inner workings, then you can have different strategies for different people. So for a gross rustic person, what do you deal? Same depression. With an artistic person, you can deal with the inner mind, and with a very spiritual person, you can just turn one to the psychic. You see, there are three different approaches to the same outward problem. So this is a very complex issue. What you are saying is all right in one sense, but it is a very complex issue, and you have to understand it from many levels. You have given certain levels from which you are understanding, but understanding of other different levels also are important. You see, you wrote, it seems to me, but what seems to others also are equally important, isn't it? Sri Aurobindo once said that I know that the opposite of what I say is true. I know that the opposite of what I say is true. So there are different ways of looking at truth. So what is truth to you is good. It is important to you, but it might also be somebody for somebody else. For him, the truth might come in a different way, and that is equally valid, equally important. Actually, that is the higher mind. The higher mind is what? The higher mind is the mind which deals with contradictory and complementary ideas simultaneously. Simultaneously, we deal with all ideas. So that's why that showing this phrase becomes very important. That I know that the opposite of what I say is true. Very, very, very difficult to say that. Only Sri Aurobindo had that what you call broadness of mind to say that. Yes, Ketki is.
Yes, I was very taken by that, what you were speaking about will and knowledge, and I wanted to ask and also extend that. I realize we know a lot of things, yeah, at the individual level, not at the broader level, that example that you gave about the official, but at the individual level, for instance, 6 days we have learned from you, right? We know so many things. We might not have the will to practice it. Or when we read Mother and Aurobindo, our first thing is, we know everything, how do we practice it? Or also in the case of, I know the case of addiction, it has far ranging, possibilities of this will. But let's say in the case of addiction, which might be more complex, like let's say I'm addicted to my phone, or somebody is addicted to smoking, or whatever that might be, we know that this is bad, but we are not able to stop doing it. So that I'm just wondering if the development of the will then help us to overcome this thing where we know it, but we are not able to practice it, or we are not able to not do it. But that is also related to the vital. So I realize that it's the mind, and we're talking about the between the eyebrows, but it's also related to the vital, that somewhere inertia, somewhere some kind of lack of motivation. So I wanted to
Lack
have
of
your
inertia and motivation is there, and inertia is there in the physical. In the vital, you have that desire, na? Which modulates your will, which you can pervert your will. So you have got desires there, and the inertia is there in the physical, which restrains us from acting out what we want to do. And in the vital, you have desires which will deviate us from the path. And one plane you are being inhibited, and one plane you will get deviated. So all
Right.
these risks are there. And at the level of the mind, you can get biased.
Okay.
Deviation, perversion is one thing, getting biased another thing. In the mind level, you can get biased. Preferential ideas can dominate. Preferential. But that's why you have to work at all levels. Integral means that you have to work at all levels. But remember that however we work, that consciousness and will start getting synthesized only above, when we rise above in consciousness. Then only they will start getting synthesized, and that perfect synthesis will happen only in the supramental consciousness. As I said yesterday, that the Jivatma and the psychic being will also get merged there, joined there. So all these things, but we have to start our work, and we have to recognize that knowledge and will have to be brought together. This is a primal fault of us, and we have to invoke it continuously. Invoke the Mother's grace and show in this grace, so that their knowledge and will in our personal individual lives, they come together whenever whatever work we do. that has to be invested with that. So this is something which you have to constantly aspire. Yesterday, someone asked me that about aspiration, rejection, and surrender. That what is rejection? Because at the every level, you will be countered by these negative forces that arise from the inconscious, the negative forces that arise from your own vital, the negative forces which are there in the cosmic consciousness, and every moment you have to reject them. You have to aspire. No? Aspiration, rejection, and surrender have to go together. So we have to reject them and to aspire that we get about them. And somebody asked me a question of the two other chakras. Actually, Mother said that though in tradition there are 7 chakras, only Sri Aurobindo is expanded a great bit. But Theo told Mother that there were 12 chakras, 3 above and 2 below. So those are 2 below which are corresponding, something which is corresponding to the subconscious and something corresponding to the inconscient. But because Sri Aurobindo has said that the subconscious is too disorganized and vague to have a chakra, so there must be the chakras before you enter, the subconscious and the chakra before you enter the inconscious. Something related to that you have to see in that way. Not much is explained. Mother said there are 3 more chakras up and 2 more chakras down, so the 5 plus 7 actually gives 12. But there is something which Theo had told Mother and which Mother had also found out. Though the main emphasis in what Sri Aurobindo is described about this 12, about the 7 chakras. Yes, Mr. Nair. Yes.
I had one more question. Oh, I'll ask it later.
You ask?
Thank you, Dr. Basu. Such a wonderful, and so engaging. So I had a couple of questions, like especially, that one aspect of what you mentioned, that these chakras open, from down to up normally, and so in Sri Aurobindo chakra, the crown chakra opens first. Is that how it? I don't know. I didn't get it really. That is one question. The second question is, you said you should concentrate on some plane of consciousness where you want to work first. So how do we choose that plane of consciousness? So that is another question.
That is, in Sri Aurobindo system, the chakras are supposed to, because the force of transformation is invoked, which will open the chakras from above below, and the chakras that are necessary for, you see, in the below up, you are doing it in a very systematic way. And from above down, it is not in a systematic way. It is spontaneous and different from different people. So for you, 2 important chakras have to be opened first. For me, 3 other chakras have to be opened first. So it's the force of transformation. You will not act in the same way, in the same systematic and grammatical way with everyone. It will be different for different people. But if your psychic being, and it is, unless the psychic being is activated, the force of transformation cannot descend. And once your psychic being is activated, then intuitively you will know which are the chakras on which you can, on which you start working. So that you have to develop your intuition also. Otherwise, how will you know that which chakra is you are going to work on? You might end up with thinking yourself that something or the other thing would have been more important. But if your psychic being, if you are concentrating on the psychic being, then the consciousness will act in such a way that an intuition will develop, because psychic being is also an intuitive being. And so it has got discrimination. So it will give you the direction from inside. Spontaneity will feel that what you are very conversant with or what you are comfortable with, that will come to you. But this is showing the system is completely different for a different reason.
Yeah. Dr. Basu, I have a question. Dr. Basu, may I ask a question?
Yes.
You mentioned that, connecting with the inner vital and the pranic Shakti is a good way to recharge the mind and the body, so to speak. Are there any techniques that are useful or known in the Aurobindonian tradition?
These techniques, especially, there are certain very good Hatha Yoga techniques that are available. But in Sri Aurobindo's tradition, you can work also directly on that inner. You can concentrate and go inside in your inner being. But you can also start with using, which is most simple to do, with the traditional Hatha Yogic techniques, where you can get connected with these energies which are inside. Especially these deep breathing techniques, pranayama and all, if they are done in a correct way. So there are techniques like that which actually connect the individual with the universal energy.
Right. I think in pranayama, one does feel the energy, but it's sort of a general energy, increase the
connected with, but if you know Sri Aurobindo's system, then you can do it in a more, what you call, in a concentrated way. Specifically, you know about the inner vital. I think I will try to give you something where Sri Aurobindo has described all those things. Ira has asked this question: does earth have chakras swell? The Shakti piece and some other sacred places, do they have anything to do that? What do you mean, Ira? Will you explain?
Well, was a mistake. I said, does the earth have chakras as well? I mean, there is a system which says that, you know, even earth is a living being and it has chakras, and, you know, there are certain energy centers in different parts of the world. So, I mean, I'm just.
It is, when we talk about these 7 chakras specifically, we are talking about our we are talking about our individual manifestation. But when Mother said about this, there are 5 other chakras, 2 below and 3 above. Then these 2 below are actually something which are related to the terrestrial consciousness.
So, Dr. Basu, perhaps I was off the chart and off this topic. I mean, I wanted to know if Mother has said, or Sri Aurobindo has said anything about the chakras, not in the individual consciousness, but, you know, earth as a being, or is it not?
Like that, Sri Aurobindo said that
Philosophical
chakras,
societies.
Sri Aurobindo has specifically written that superconscious, in the superconscious there is no chakra, and down below in the inconscious it is too disorganized. It is not organized to have a chakra. That he has given. But to enter into that might, that these 2 chakras which Mother said, which is below the body, might be an entry point to go into that.
Okay.
But if things are not very organized, things are amorphous, then you cannot have something like chakra, which is something very specific.
Thank you. Also, can I ask another question related to this? I mean,
Yes.
maybe it's related or not, but this concept of rays, which comes from the Theosophical society, does it have any bearings in the Aurobindonian?
No. That doesn't have, neither in Sri Aurobindo system, or even we see some in Vivekananda and others, they have not much. They have not too much recommended all those things, because they can be coming from. You know, I showed you a chart of how the being disintegrates, comes down. So
Right.
there are beings which are going down up to the elementals. They are the forces of that different levels, which are confused with forces of the higher levels. So definitely there are forces, but there are something which are there at the lower level might be confused with something which at the higher level. So better to stick to one type of discrimination. And the
Yes,
Bija mantras
no,
for the chakras related, which Vignesh has asked, might be useful if you are following the old traditional system. For our system in Sri Aurobindo, this thing that you just concentrate on the mother, and that itself will, because you work on your psychic being and concentrate on the mother. That itself is more powerful than the usual Bij mantras that were there. And the Bij mantras are specific for different levels. But we are wanting the transformation of our whole system, and the force of transformation is to decide which centers have to be activated first. So we have to leave it to the Supreme.
Dr. Basu, this is Shakuntala speaking. How does one guide oneself with these 5 sessions which we have so far? We have to take chakras in some from above, but knowing also the lower chakras. But how do we know we are doing it correctly?
No, you don't have to spend time on that. I would tell that the better way is to concentrate on your psychic being. Okay. Allow that to come forward and take it over, and it will do the rest of the things. It will do automatically. If you are going to start from below, then a huge amount of time will be wasted.
Okay.
So a much better, more dynamic way is to leave it at the psychic being and let it take charge. Let it take charge of the being. That is what Sri Aurobindo wants, that the psychic being has to take charge of the whole being.
What is the difference between silence and getting into trance?
Subject getting into
Trance.
trance. Trance is a very different thing. Which people talk about trance in very different ways. So some people might think that they have. Some people talk about samadhi when they are talking about trance. There are very different levels. Trance is a very general word. So some people can go into samadhi at a certain point in time when you get concentrated. But what Sri Aurobindo says that if you go to a trance or you go to samadhi, the problem is that you have to come back again to this world. You cannot remain there forever because the lower parts of your consciousness are not changed, and you are they are with you. No? When you have gone into trance, your mind has gone into a place which is very beautiful.
Yeah.
But when you cannot stay there for a long time because you have to come back. You have your unconscious, you have your vital, and they have their own demands. So that is why unless transformation takes place, then the whole thing has a limited value.
Okay.
Even
Thank
samadhi,
you.
even trance.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Vaishnav.
I think I'm just reiterating the point which you mentioned, but giving a simile in the institution, we have a third-year resident, then there is SR, then there is AP, then there is head of department, and then dean. So in the hierarchy of power, as it were, I think if you focus on the psychic being and work on that with the mother as our reference point, then I think there are chances that you would not be misled in the intermediate zone by the universal power, non-evolving powers and other things. Because if the moment we try to turn our gaze inward, often there might be forces which we are really not truly psychic or divine. So that's a great guide ourselves.
Right. And you're right. And somebody was asking this guidance on psychic beings. There are numerous in the letters of yoga. You will find numerous references, and there is a compilation of material on the psychic being by Dr. Dalal, which is named as a psychic being. And but from the personality point of view, that I can tell that we can begin with our working on our the structure of our being, on the structure of being that I showed you. You can start working with that, because the psychic being has to work with instruments. And who are the instruments? The instruments of our mind, vital, and the body. So we have to develop the mind, vital, and body. Now, otherwise, the psychic being cannot act without any instrument. So you can start doing it. You have to start doing it in ways where you are more comfortable to work with it. So if you are an intellectual person, you can start working with the mind. If you are a very sports person, you can start working with your body. If you are a very vital, dynamic person, you can start working with your vital. So there are many guidances are there. If you go over Sri Aurobindo's literature, then you can see there are many ways you can start working there. And go to the inner being. Go to the inner being of that plane. That the inner plane of that. So you go, if you can go to your inner mind, develop your supra-rational modes of consciousness or thinking. You can go to your inner physical and develop your body consciousness. And then concentrate also. Yesterday, that exercise I gave you on that psychic being, concentrating on the fourth dimensional principle, you should also practice that. And allow it to come forwards, Yesterday, you are doing this exercise of concentrating on the central essence of our being, which is far, far behind in the fourth dimension. I just gave that exercise to show you that it is very difficult, and you have to go actually deep, deep within. You have to go very deep within. If you don't go deep within, as Mother said, Sri Aurobindo said that many people go to the substratum ego and they find that they think that they have got the self and they're satisfied with it. Then when the ego is not there, something of some shadow of the ego is left, which they call substratum ego. So unless you practice going to the fourth dimension, which is very, very deep and deeper than what you have conceived of so long, then you will not have a concept of the psychic presence there. So when you go deep inside, practice it. After some time, definitely the guidance come from inside. As Sri Aurobindo said that The outer guides, na, their role has ended. Outer gurus, na, the inner guru will now start working. Outer guru also you can't know na, who is good and who is fake. You will never know also. It is risky also to have outer gurus. So what Aurobindo said in Synthesis of Yoga, na, the inner guide. It is the time for the inner guide to come forward. And the inner guide is the psychic being at first. After the psychic being is there, might be the inner guide, some other inner guide will come. Yes, Dr. Mehta, Professor Mehta.
No, I think
You talk after that.
yeah. I think the important thing is the practice, right? And I think any pointers, Dr. Basu, that you may give about how to know that we are on the right path, right? Because if it is something external, then you and I can both see it, right? If I've injured myself, you can see it. But, and if I'm healing, you can see it. But internally, if I'm on the right path or not on the right path, what are some of the signs that one should look for, especially since one is not looking for an outer guru? How does one negotiate the inner journey? Dr. Basu, your experience would be most enlightening.
This is something I think we should have a session fully on the inner journey. This word is very beautiful, this phrase that you have said. Because this is that inner journey itself is something which is a very which is a very important topic, the inner journey, and we should have phases where we don't have theory, but we just have these expositions that how we work inside our inner journey. There are many levels where simultaneously you have to work. At the level of the mind, you have to have that silence stabilizing inside you. At the level of the vital, you have to have that pranamaya purusha. You have to have that pranamaya purusha and that controlling you, and to go through that. That is very important. Otherwise, everything will become unsettled. The vital can unsettle all gains that can happen at any other plane. The vital can unsettle everything. At the level of the physical, that we have to, we have to practice how we develop our body consciousness. How can we make? How we can bring? Because the body is intrinsically not pure. There is some element of impurity always there in the physical consciousness. Might be our desire for food or hunger, or you see people.
Dr. Basu, this is Shakuntala again. Can we have an advanced course for people who are seriously interested to know how their inner progress?
We'll do that. That's what Professor Mehta was telling. That something like that we can actually plan something. We'll plan with this and plan with something.
Yeah.
Yes, Ketki tell, and then Ira tell. Ketki was wanting to tell something.
Yes, I wanted to ask yesterday you had told us that the psychic being will be the template for the new creation. So is that the same thing as intermediate beings, and which means that no? Okay.
That we explain it. Intermediate beings are will come in a different way. We'll explain that. We'll have a session for that. Okay. Like in the last chapter of the part 1 of Life Divine, he has given a hint.
Okay. So which means that in the new creation, everyone will be psychicized. That means the ego will be replaced by the psychic in the new creation.
Otherwise, the new creation will not start happening. The psychic doesn't.
Okay.
Yes, Irati.
Dr. Basu, I just wanted to know on a very, very practical level, on a, my personal practical level. I mean, everything seems very, like a Herculean task. But so if I intentionally say want to work on my throat chakra, can I concentrate in my meditation and bring mother's light to my throat chakra? So is that a good way? Is like small.
Very much do that. Very much do that. To concentrate and bring the light.
So like that, I can work, while doing a meditation, if occurs that, this is where I need to work on, I can just bring mother's life there.
Of course you can do. And then you see that what you speak will carry an effectual power. Okay. Otherwise, what we speak, what we want to communicate some message to something which might not be taken in their true spirit. But if you work there, then that message will be taken in their spirit.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for all the sessions.
Yes.
Dr. Basu.
Yes.
Medical physical questions. So should we talk today or later on at some time?
They talk.
Right now.
Hmm.
Okay, sir. When I really look at everything around, especially we can talk about physical consciousness or neurobiological sense. First, I would say in recent 6-7 months, I have come across many children becoming autistic when either parents were not available because of Corona or the brother left somewhere and like that. They have withdrawn totally. So one thing that I have observed. And on building on that, what I'm seeing neurobiologically, like you live in Bengal and we used to have fish, quality fish, which give good brain. And now the diet is deficit as far as good fat is concerned. So overall, the white matter in the brain and its connectivity and the sort of environmental pollution also, 5G and all that is coming up. I feel the brain which we should have to work upon rationally to begin with, that is deteriorating. So what is your take on that? I'm quite pessimistic as far as physical tool is concerned in the form of brain. That is deteriorating.
You just explain again what is the main thing that you want to communicate.
Yeah, my idea is if we take about physical aspects and that in the brain, the quality of brain structure, the fatty acid which we are taking, which is required for myelination, and that gives good quality of thinking and meta thinking, all that is degrading. Our brains are not as sharp as it used to be earlier. So in one way, I feel the tool which is required to aspire and move ahead, the pedestal, the foundation, as far as neurobiology is concerned, that is weaker now than few decades earlier.
Achha. If you tell me that also as a practicing clinician, I would say this. Because you tell me the vast amount of small things that we never saw before to that extent, like ticks. You see how the ticks have increased this Tourette syndrome,
Yes.
syndrome, ticks. How they have increased. When I see that 40 years back when I started that, how many cases we used to see and how many cases we see now, I feel that something grossly wrong is happening at the neurobiological level. Something that the neurological structure that was there, something is becoming loose, which is a great area of great concern.
Yes.
I feel that very strongly when I see more and more children. You see, when I started work, how many autistic children we used to see? One in a year, and now I see one every day. Even though I am not a special child psychiatrist, but still I have to see, I might be seeing more children with autism than official child psychiatrist in Calcutta. So it's like that I feel something grossly wrong is occurring in the neurological or the neurochemical or the physiological substrate of our children that are being born today.
Exactly.
And we cannot go back to the previous way of reconstructing the way it was there before. So we have to work on consciousness to find out new ways how to get over that gap. That is why this work of consciousness now will become more important. Because we will find out how with new tools, with new areas of consciousness, how we can approach the problem. Because you cannot go back to the older times when things were different. We cannot go back to that state. We have come ahead of that. And while coming ahead, something has gone, something is grossly wrong. With our children, I'm seeing that our generation children that we are seeing, something is grossly wrong. Otherwise, why are having an efflorescence of this kind of cases?
Exactly.
So I feel that very strongly. But we have to find out newer ways how to tackle this problem. And these newer ways are this consciousness has to be brought in a very practical level. These workings have to be brought. Yes,
if I
yes, Dr. Rajesh.
if I allow myself to stretch my mind, to me the ideas come probably a large mass of our population would perish and less number of people would take this journey of evolution.
Hmm.
This idea comes to me again and again. Billions of people won't be a partner in this movement. A small number of people would, I
That
don't know.
itself will be enough, even if a small, which you see, this is something which I frequently tell people get very sad, our organizers, because very few people come to Sri Aurobindo. Then with other gurus, the mass gurus, they have thousands of people. But Sri Aurobindo's work actually is done behind the scenes. And even if it is done by a small group of people, it is the world which will benefit, but they will not know. So small amount of work, as Mother said, that it is contagious. This kind of work of transformation is contagious. It will affect others. It will influence others. But at the time being, very selected people have to do the work. And knowing that this work is not done with trumpets, you cannot blow trumpets, you cannot give lectures, you cannot give presentations in the media and show that you are doing great things. It has to be done behind the veil. So that you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for that. That this work, you cannot advertise this kind of work. It is always going to be done, and it will be at the present moment done by very selected people. Afterwards, the whole world will reap its benefit.
Thank you.
Shilpati, yes, Shilpati.
Yes, thank you so very much for this absolutely amazing session. During these, past 6 days, what for me has sort of come about is, you've been talking about the subtle body, so it's to stop myself from mentally trying to understand, but the tap into the experience, which has been of just feeling something behind, which is like a lightish color. And so it seems to take away the strain from the physical body, at least it feels like it. So when doing different things on a daily basis, I mean, it's like, okay, reading Mother and Sri Aurobindo's books, is it like feeling that behind and then just letting the light come in and read, or even doing physical hatha yoga or exercises? It feels like the body draws in, it's a heaviness, but then once it's somehow connected behind, suddenly one is able to feel very light even in the gross body. Are these kind of tips and directions that something is connecting behind? Because I'm trying to very much try to stop.
There is a shift somewhere to some other level, which is indicating a shift somewhere to some other level, which is good.
So can one sort of constantly, it's going back to what Ira was saying, is like, you don't want to put your mind too much into connecting with the chakra or anything, but if you're feeling this at the back of you all over, then wherever it connects, but connecting with Mother's force somewhere, you just keep doing that so that you're not getting your mind too much into a tangle.
No, it's all right. It is happening spontaneously. These things come in phases. It will come in a certain phase of your journey. These things will come. Again, it might go away, and it will come in a different way. So different things will come at different phases with your concentration and all. In an aura, I see your room has got an aura of the Mother's presence, so it's good.
Yeah, no, it's just again, because I quite often get myself into a taste that, okay, mentally I'm not understanding or able to vocalize anything that's going on, and I know that itself causes a hindrance. So this experience has been beautiful these past few days, and I want to almost like, okay, just stay with it and not bother whether I can mentally understand or not. Is that the right kind of?
Yes, okay. And the picture behind you of the Mother is very much like the subtle body which the Mother has now at present in the subtle physical. So you have a very good aura in your room, very nice. I can feel that. Yes, Dr. Vaishnav? And we are not being able to hear you.
Yes.
You are muted. Yes.
Dr. Rajesh Kumar mentioned, I also agree. If you look at, not even children, if you look at all of us, the way we scroll through WhatsApp and Facebook and our attention span our ability to keep focus on a subject or on a matter also seems to have gone or reduced considerably. I mean, you look at the way quickly you scroll through the WhatsApp and this and that. So there is an issue. And if somebody is conscious, one can reflect. But somebody is not conscious, I think it can lead to degrade. I was talking in one in the center that really, I mean, how to check it. Now, every time you look at the WhatsApp, are you remembering mother? I mean, if you, I mean, you are very quick to look at the WhatsApp or Facebook, but are you that quick to remember the mother? So if you are, or if you can train yourself that way, then I think there is a chance, there is an opportunity. I mean, that habit can be converted into a level. And second thing, I think there was a discussion about pranayama. I must say that the pranayama gives you energy, but it doesn't give you direction or the wisdom for need an aspiration. So without aspiration or without knowledge, if you only do the sadhana of pranayama, then you would lose the direction. But if you combine both, I mean, the accelerator and the steering, both, I mean, the force and the knowledge, both, I think it serves the purpose. Thank you.
Yes, Siegfried, life is an experiment. So we are always concentrated on the gross body. Why not do this experiment of feeling the subtle body more and more? Try it and see what direction it gives. Yes, Manan will say something.
Yes, Dada, I think someone also had mentioned it during one of the days, but you know, the interplay of the centers of consciousness. I mean, rather than using chakras, I would use centers of consciousness and simultaneously bringing that in conscious action on the outside. My own experience of having, I mean, I've been doing theater for the last 2.5 years. And the mother lays so much emphasis over and over again in conversations, and then in the science of living, on education, on being conscious of the different parts of the being and their varying movements and aligning them more and more. So, you know, in theater, for example, obviously we got to work on our physical fitness, and the higher vital becomes very important. And then over time, I realized that this is a great opportunity to also work on the throat chakra more and more for spontaneous expression, you know, with an alignment of the parts of the being. So, I mean, this is partially in reference to what Iraji talked about, the throat chakra. So this came to me. And maybe in the bigger course that, I mean, the next course, the advanced course that you might consider, we could talk about the interplay of the various centers of consciousness, like the combinations also. Because to me, it always comes across, I mean, in my imagination, it often occurs as a matrix, you know, all the parts, all the centers of consciousness have an interplay with each other, you know, something like that.
Yeah, good, correct. Yes, Kiran was wanting to say something. Kiran Shud. Where are you?
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yes. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude from the deepest core of my heart and soul that you have done such a difficult part of yoga and in a very beautiful way. But I think we have to conclude from where you began, that aspiration and rejection, and then more important is surrender, and fourth is acceptance. When it's my experience, then when we take these 4 steps, it comes automatically. We don't have to do any external effort to get our chakras opened or to have an experience. It comes automatically because in our system, we have something beyond knowledge. We have pragya and sumedha. It is in our ancient literature, and Sri Aurobindo has explained it very, very scientifically so that we can understand and we can follow it. And when we go for surrender, it's my experience that we get very clear direction and self-guidance, and we reach somewhere where we aspire for, but we have to make efforts constantly. Perseverance is the essence. Thank you so much, Dr. Basu.
Thank you.
We would like to meet you sometime. Thank you.
Thank you. And for Parvinder's question, though Google has said that the euthanasia and Ichabittu are same, they are not the same. We have a big article on euthanasia in Nama, in one of the older issues in 1990s, which was quoted many times. And that after I wrote that article, I was called Dr. Ramesh Bijlani. That was the first time he called me to All India Institute to speak on it. And where we have explained of the different kinds of euthanasia and how it is different from Ichabittu, which is totally different from this modern movement of euthanasia. And Mother and Aurobindo have also written about euthanasia. You see, it's not like that. So a very comprehensive document is there on euthanasia. That is one of the older articles, and I think that from I don't think that it is there in a way that it can be downloaded from the index. Prabhu, you have to, James, you have to tell Prabhu to look after that euthanasia article. I will just check and see which year it was published, so one can go through it. Yes, I think James has to call it a day.
Yeah, I think we'll get cut off soon if we don't stop. So yeah, thank you very, very much, Dr. Basu, and thank you very much for everyone for participating and making this such a meaningful and beautiful workshop. Just a few words. I'll be circulating feedback forms very, very soon. And also tonight, we aim to give you the recording tonight via a link, although on Monday, I'll be giving you the downloaded recordings only on Monday, but we'll aim to give you a recording link tonight as soon as possible. So basically, that's it really. Opening the chakras, spontaneous process. And thank you very much, everyone, for participating.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Dr.
very
Basu
much.
and Mr.
Thank you
James.
very much, James and Dr. Basu.
Yeah.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful and powerful.
Yes, yes.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.